Waking the Guardian, episode number 9. Let's start to record here. Awaken the Guardian, episode number 9. Today's topic, lessons from the beach, which is where I was. Alright, let's go here, move this one here, and off we go. Cool. Hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of, that's right, Awaken the Guardian. Today's topic is going to be a little different. This probably wouldn't echo if I put this on my head. Let's try this. All right, there we go. So, today's topic is lessons from the beach. The beach, the beach, the beach. We all love the beach, right? Well, this last week, I actually had an experience on the beach that was completely different from anything that you have ever experienced. And it's not a bad thing. See, I am a certified trainer for Wake Up Warrior, which gives me the opportunity to coach men in a very unique environment. And what I got to do this last week in person, but the previous 3 weeks online, was coach a group of men. And by coach, I don't mean that they came to me and I said, do X, do Y, do Z, and then all of a sudden they're like, thanks, coach, high five, fist bump, and then on they went with their lives. I mean, this is the most in-depth, raw, real, in-your-face, exposing event that I've ever been a part of. And how do I know this? Because I was a part of it. Like, I was a student. I went through the program. So to be able to go back and actually coach men was a huge honor, a huge blessing, and an invaluable experience. But what I want to share with you is the lessons that I learned on the beach. They culminated on the beach. They started prior to. But I want to share with you these lessons that I learned. Because it is one thing to learn something going through it. It's another thing to learn something guiding someone through it. And that's what it was for me. It was this huge opportunity to, as a coach, guide men through the exact same process that I'd been through. Now, these 18 men, let me tell you about them. They weren't just from the United States, so they were international. They didn't all live in one place, obviously. They weren't all the same age. Some were married, some weren't. Some were in committed relationships, some weren't. Some had kids, some didn't. But they all suffered from the same thing. Ready for this? They're all men. We've talked about this before, and the issues that men have. And it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it just is what it is. We naturally, as men, have issues, right? We're insecure, we're trying to connect, we're trying to feel and be in power, we're trying to provide, we're trying to do all these things. But the truth is that we're going to jack it up along the way. Like, it just is what it is. I could give you a game plan. I could give you a notebook that told you everything that you needed to do in order to have a successful marriage, a successful business, be connected with your kids, have sex all the time. Like, I could give you a book. I could write it all out for you. But the odds of you following it are zero. Literally zero. Why? Because men have egos. These egos don't serve them. They like to think that they do, but the truth is they don't. And again, like, I'm not sitting here preaching something that I haven't experienced. You've heard plenty of my stories that I've talked about my life in different situations where my ego got in the way. My ego almost got me divorced. My ego got me addicted to pornography. My ego got me to started drinking alcohol and using prescription drugs. Like, my ego was the reason that my life was messed up. So, what did these men have in common? Ego. That's it. Eliminate all the feelings that you have associated with your ego right now. Because I know right now you're like ready to beat your radio, or throw your phone into the wall, or wherever it is that you're listening. You're like, I don't have an ego. Well, guess what? You're the one I'm talking to. Because you do. Especially if you're in a position of power. Meaning you're a police officer, you're a firefighter, you're in the military, you're in some type of leadership position in an organization, you're a CEO or vice president. Like, these positions feed your ego, and you love them. Ask yourself this: why would you rather spend 18 hours at the office instead of at home connecting with your wife and kids? Because your ego doesn't mean shit to your wife and your kids. It really doesn't. But at work, guess what? Oh yes, feed my ego, please. And they'll feed it all day long. So, back to these men. All of these men came from different walks of life. Some of them were business owners, some of them were employees, some of them were entrepreneurs. Like, there was a mix all over. You talk construction, you talk all the different industries that you can think of. There's doctors, there's chiropractors, there's everything in between. So all of these men had a different background, but they were all there for the same reason. Or so they thought. They were all there to figure out what was wrong with them. Right? Because we as men, think about this. If there's something wrong with the washer, what do we want to do? We want to fix it. If there's something wrong with the car, what do we want to do? We want to fix it. Something wrong with the computer, what do we want to do? We want to fix it. Lawnmower, fix it. Like roof, fix it. Light bulb, fix it. Like, we've got this like handy-mandy. That's a good idea. This is a handy-manny syndrome. This is what men have, the handy-manny syndrome. There has to be something wrong so that I can fix it. And when there's nothing wrong, then I can't fix it. So what do? I don't know. Like, I'll break something on purpose so that I can fix it. Like, this is the pattern that we have. This is the pattern that I had for so many years. Right? There's something wrong with you, telling my wife. I'll fix you. There's nothing wrong with me. Yes, there is. I'll fix it. Or I'll break something so then I have to fix it. Like, really, that's what we do. So, what I wanted to talk to you about is, like, what was the process that these men went through? And then, what were the lessons that I learned? Like, there were five main lessons that I learned coaching these men. So, these men started with a very simple task, and that task was to post a picture of themselves and their families and their names. Sounds like a reasonable task, a simple task, right? A kind of get-to-know-me session. Well, guess what? Half of the men screwed it up from the beginning. They couldn't follow simple directions. So ask yourself, are you one of these? Like, I think about this. The last time my wife got an IKEA project. For any of you men who have ever been to IKEA, it's just a box of parts, like adult-sized Legos, and you have to figure out how to put it together. But how many of you actually read the instructions to put it together first? Or do you try and say, I got this, put it together, it's all messed up, and then you have to go back, undo it, and then read the instructions to do it the right way? I'll raise my hand. That's me. So, these men couldn't follow simple instructions. And it was just this pattern that they had in their life, right? And so this entire lead up was all about breaking patterns, right? How do we identify them? How do we break them? Because in order for them to experience what they were trying to experience, in order for them to find what they were trying to find, which was just something that they already had, it was just lost, they had to be in the right frame. They had to be in the right state for that to occur. So, we made that happen. Now, mind you, if any of you men have ever been teachers, I feel for you. Like, literally, 18 men was like herding cats. And not in a bad way. Like, they were all over the place. Some days they'd show up, they'd be on point. Some days they wouldn't show up, they'd be all over the place. I have to chase them, try and make sure they do things on time. They wouldn't follow directions. They'd talk out of turn. Like all these rules that they were given, they wouldn't follow them. Like there's a process set up, and they were constantly told, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. And what can men never do? That's right, trust the process. But eventually we got them to this point, right? This point where they were ready, and they showed up. And over this week-long period, this 5-day period, they experienced massive change, or I would say, a massive reset in their lives, where they were able to reconnect with exactly who they were, why they were here, and where they were going. Huge. Like I can't even put it in words. How you take a man whose wife has moved out, whose wife has already asked for a divorce, bought a new house, like all these things have happened, and all of a sudden, by the time he gets back, within 2 days, he's back together with his wife, going on dates, doing things with his kids, like huge, massive resets. So these 5 lessons, right? How did these 5 lessons that I learned, how do they apply to you? So lesson number 1, we're all the same. Like regardless of your background, regardless of where and how you grew up, regardless of your life experience, we are all the same. See, we tend to forget that. We tend to think that no one else understands what we're going through. No one else has experienced what we have. And to a point, that is true. But the fact is that we all experience things differently, but to the same conclusion. Right? And here's the conclusion. We all hide behind our stories. They're all different, but we all hide behind them. Like there was a man who, when he was younger, he was chubby. Like I wouldn't call him fat, but he was chubby. And so what happened? Well, some kids made fun of him. So from that point forward, he didn't feel comfortable taking his shirt off. Not in front of his wife, not in front of his children, not in front of his in-laws. Mind you, this man is almost 40 years old, and his children have never seen him with his shirt off. Like that story. And it's not that he's fat. Like he had a period of time, where he was fat, but he's not fat anymore. But because of what he was told when he was young, this story that he told himself that kept him handcuffed. Literally not free to do what he wanted to do. He'd created his own prison. You know, you have men whose wives have cheated on them. And so they tell themselves their story that all women are cheaters. And so they can never build an emotional connection with a woman because they have this story that's keeping them from doing that. Telling them that all women want is sex and they are cheaters and therefore they never want to connect with me. So I'm not going to try and connect with them. And these patterns start to dominate these lives, right? Same thing that I had, these patterns that I had in my life. Like when I was young, I had experiences, things that happened to me that made me feel alone, that made me feel that no one really valued me. So then I took on this story that nobody really cared about me. So it was this me against the world mentality. And I would fight. Everybody who I had a chance to fight, I would fight. Sometimes physically, most of the time verbally, like I would attack. Because that was me. I was a fighter. It's me against the world. So these stories that we have in our lives, regardless of how or where or when we grew up, dominate our behaviors. Like think about OCD behaviors. Where do they come from? You think about the person that washes their hands 15, 20, 30, 100 times a day. Like why do they do that? Well, when they were young, somebody told them something about germs, and they got it in their mind that if they don't wash their hands 15, 20, 100 times a day, then they're going to get germs and they're going to die. And so now this behavior has handcuffed them. It's dominated their lives. I want to bring up this was real special to me. Like this concept of race. Like you could talk about race all day long, and I'm not going to go super deep into it. This could be all over the place. This can be its own podcast episode. But think about race. The only reason that race exists is because we say it does. Like we're the ones that notice the difference in our skin color. And as soon as we do, we associate with those of the same skin color. Because we think that that's what we're supposed to do. And so we notice the difference. But regardless of skin color, like if you were to close your eyes and have a conversation with a man or a woman, not knowing their background, like their race, I guarantee you the conversation would be the same. Issues with money, issues with intimacy, issues with connection, issues with body. Like we all have the same issues. But this story of race, because I'm black, because I'm white, because I'm Hispanic, because I'm Asian, like they handcuff us to not be able to get what we truly want out of life. They dominate our lives. So that's the first one. We're all the same, regardless of your background, regardless of your skin color, regardless of how and where you grew up. And here's the coolest part about that. Like my background, right? I was a police officer for 15 years. I grew up in a small border town. You're like, what is this guy going to teach me? But the truth is, like I had everything in common with these men. Everything. Because I had the same struggles. Which allowed me to connect with them. It allowed me to serve them. Because I'd experienced their pain. I'd experienced their disconnect. The lack of money, the lack of intimacy, the searching for sedation instead of purpose because I didn't know how. We are all the same. Lesson 2. If we don't start with the truth, we will never get what we want. Yeah, pause for dramatic effect. What does that mean? If we don't start with the truth, we will never get what we want. Think about your life and where it is that you have been avoiding the truth. Like, I played this game. I played this game of, I would go to work and I would have this front. Hey, man, what's up? Hey, bro. Hey, man, how's the wife? How's the kids? Oh, good, man. Everything's good. Yeah, I had a really good weekend. Yeah, it was awesome, man. Yeah, things are good. Cool. Like, bold-faced lie. Bold-faced lie because I'd argued and yelled and screamed at my wife. I was sleeping on the couch. My kids were scared of me hiding in the bedroom. There was no intimacy. I blew all my money on stupid shit. Like, bold-faced lie. So I could tell myself in my mind that I wanted a better relationship. I could tell myself in my mind that I wanted more intimacy. I could tell myself in my mind that I wanted to fix my money problems. But until I was willing to face it and tell the truth about it, it was never going to happen. I was living in fantasy land. So when I was on the police department, right, I worked undercover for a period of time. And I supervised, later on in my career, I supervised an undercover squad. So what we did is we didn't just like go out and say, hey, I'm going to go just randomly call a phone number and hopefully they're going to sell me drugs. Like, it wasn't like that. It was so not like that. Like, you guys watch TV and you're like, wow, this is so cool. Like, the cops, like, they just talk to anybody and all of a sudden they're buying drugs and they're busting down houses and millions of dollars in cash and like all this stuff. Blah, 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 blah. That's TV. What we had was something called an operations plan. Like, everything that we did was planned and based on the facts, like what we knew. So we'd identify a suspect, right? A drug dealer, if you will. And then we'd do a background check on this drug dealer. Does he have any weapons history? Like violent crime history? Because that's going to determine if I'm going to have regular people, regular police officers cover my deal, or if I'm going to have the SWAT team cover it, right? Because the propensity for violence is higher. Has this man been arrested for drugs before? Has this man been arrested in stolen cars before? Who were his accomplices? Like, all of these details were known ahead of time so that we could plan properly. So that I could go in knowing that, hey, this kid, he's 19 years old, he's a college kid, and he's just selling weed. He doesn't have a history of violence. None of his accomplices or acquaintances do. Like, I can be a little more low-key on this one. I can be a little more relaxed. I can let the undercover officer do a little more. Now, if I do a check on a hardened criminal who served 10 years for armed robbery, was charged with attempted homicide, is known to carry a gun all the time, like, things are going to be different. I'm going to have the SWAT team there. The parameters that the undercover officer is going to have are very, very tight because we want to keep him safe. But see, none of this stuff works if we don't start with the truth, with the facts, right? I could lie to myself and say that nothing's going to happen, but I know for a fact that I've had friends who have been in these situations. I've been in contact with undercover police officers who've been shot doing deals. I've been in contact with these other agencies where things have gone wrong. Like, all of these things I've seen happen based on the fact that they were ignoring the facts, not embracing the facts. So, exposure, right, is a necessity for growth. Think about that. Most of us hide from exposure, right? Think about it as walking into your high school gym, just a towel on, into the middle of center court, dropping the towel. Like, that's what we think of exposure. Oh, hell no, I'm not going to do that, right? It's going to embarrass me. No one's going to like me. Like, that's the end of my life. Like, all these things that we tell ourselves are going to happen. But that's not further from the truth. See, what exposure does, I want you to think of exposure like the foundation of your house, right? If you can dig down to where the foundation of your house is touching solid rock and then build up from there, how much stronger is your house going to be? If you try and build this foundation, this same foundation, on a pile of sand, how strong is your foundation going to be? See, these facts are this solid foundation that we build everything on. So with these men, the most important thing was exposing them to the truth. The truth of where they were in their life right now. The truth to the lies that they were telling themselves. The truth to the worst thing that they've ever done. The truth to how their life was or was not working. Right? Exposing them, because now exposed, they could grow. Number 3, there is a gap between where we are, and what we want. There is a gap. Now, the gap may be 10 feet, the gap may be a mile, the gap may be 100 miles. Like, I don't know how big the gap is, but the fact is that there is a gap. And most of us avoid looking at it or even talking about it. Like, we think about it. Man, I haven't had sex in like 2 months. Like, all I want is sex. Like, that's, I just want to connect with my wife. Like, I want to get it on. That's what I want. But we won't talk about it. We won't do anything about it. Man, it sure would be nice to have more money. Like, how many times have you told yourself that? Or, even better, I wonder where the money's going. But when's the last time you actually logged into your bank account to actually see where the money was going? Guess I just got to make more money. That's logical, right? That makes sense. But that's what we do, right? We avoid looking at or even talking about this gap. So why does the gap exist in the first place, right? So think about this. One side of the gap is the truth, like where we are right now. The other side of the gap is where we want to be. And so, like I said before, our unwillingness to look at the truth of where we are right now is the reason then why we'll never get what we want. Oh, sure, I want more sex and more intimacy in my marriage. But I won't look at the fact as to why there isn't intimacy in my life, in my marriage. Sure, I want to have more money, but I won't look at the fact as to where I'm spending it right now. So we purposely set this up or set ourselves up for a failure. Like, we all know there's a gap, but our unwillingness to look at the truth will never allow us to connect with what it is that we truly want. Next, number 4. The only way to bridge that gap is with help. Otherwise, you would have already done it. Think about that. Like, there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And again, it could be a small gap, it could be a huge gap. For most of you, it's a huge gap. And I speak from experience. Like I wanted to have sex with my wife. I wanted to have more sex and intimacy with her. But I was unwilling to look at the reasons why I wasn't. And it was because I was treating her like a piece of shit. I was demanding sex. I was demanding these things in my life. And so I wanted more, but unwilling to look at the fact that me, the asshole, was the reason why I wasn't. So I would shift the blame to her. I would shift the blame to work. I would shift the blame to stress. I would shift the blame to all these other things external to me. So even if I knew where the gap was, I knew I wasn't having sex and I knew I wanted more sex, like the only reason that that gap, or the only way that that gap was going to be bridged was with help. Like, and this sounds counterintuitive, but I'm telling you, like, my marriage and my life would not be where they are today if I wasn't willing to go get help. If I wasn't willing to admit that I've got a problem that for some reason I don't know how to solve, and I need to go find somebody. And that's where the coach comes in, mentor comes in, trainer comes in, whatever you want to call them. It's somebody with experience to take a step back and go, okay, I see where you're at. I know where you want to go. I've been down this road before. Here is the path. See, when I first started running, I just ran just because, like, I didn't understand anything about running. And then once I started running more seriously marathons, any of you who have run marathons, and for those of you who haven't, most of you have heard of the Boston Marathon. Well, the Boston Marathon's like this big, huge, like pinnacle of running. Because the only way you can get in is based on a qualifying time. Meaning that money can't get you in, status can't get you in. Like, the only thing that gets you in is you qualifying with a certain time. And that time is based on your sex and your age. There's age brackets. So when I first started training to qualify for the Boston Marathon, I did it on my own. I grabbed a plan online. I said, cool, let's go. I would go run. In my first marathon, I literally thought I was going to die. Second marathon, same thing. Thought I was going to die. Third marathon, about died. Like, and this pattern kept presenting itself. And I'm like, man, I know where I'm at and I know where I want to go, but I just, like, it's not happening. It's not working. So finally I went and I found a coach. And the coach said, here, you need to take nutrition into account, which I wasn't at all. You need to change up your training days and have one speed work, one middle, and one long distance. And you don't push yourself hard on all three. This is how you train. Then you add heart rate into this. Like, there were all these variables that I hadn't even considered because I didn't have that experience. Like, I didn't know how to bridge that gap. I could see the other side. I knew where I wanted to go. I just didn't know how to get there. That's where the coach comes into play. So these men, these 18 men that I was able to coach, they knew what they wanted. They wanted more sex. They wanted more intimacy. They wanted more connection. They wanted more purpose. They wanted more money. but they didn't know how to get it. And they finally understood that they needed someone else, coach, trainer, mentor, guru, whatever you want to call it. They needed someone else to help them get there. Number 5. There is no money that can buy the feeling of freedom that the truth brings. There's no amount of money that can buy the feeling of freedom that the truth brings. Think about that. When I used to go to court, all right, for cases, I would stand up and swear, like, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. But what court was, it was just a circus show. Like, I've seen police officers that have lied. I've seen prosecutors that have lied. I've seen defense attorneys that have lied. I've seen defendants that have lied. Like, I've seen all this entire realm full of liars. People unwilling to tell the truth. Like, if you just told the truth, how different would your life be? But we fight it, right? And this goes back to the whole exposure thing. Like, we fight the truth like the truth is going to hurt us. Like the truth is a bad thing. I mean, look at politicians today. I'm not even going to get into politicians because personally I think they're worthless. But like, look at politicians. You've got all these scandals and these things coming out. Oh, he took money from this person and he took money from the, oh, can you believe this money? Oh, this person said this about this. Can you? Why? Because if they all told the truth from the beginning, there wouldn't be a story. Like, think about that. Like, this was my life. Here I was protecting and serving the public, right? Telling the truth. Defending the truth. Bad guy criminal, if you don't tell me the truth, I'm going to take you to jail. And I would put on this like cape, right? And this sword in my hand, and I was fighting for truth and right and justice. And then I'd go home and I'd lie to my wife. I'd lie to her that, you know, I had an addiction to pornography. I'd lie to her that, like, I really didn't know what to do in my marriage. I'd lie to her that we had more money than we really did. I'd lie to her that I really knew how to connect with my son. I'd lie to her that, you know, I wasn't like talking to other women. Like, I just kept lying and lying and lying, and I wondered why my relationship was so terrible and horrible and why I asked her for a divorce. Because I was a liar. And there was no amount of money that someone could pay me that would be worth the freedom that the truth brought in my life. Like, when I finally started living in this place of truth, like, everything changed. Like, I don't have to remember anything. Why? Because the only thing you have to remember is a lie. The truth is the truth. Like, it's never going to change. And so I experienced that with these men. It's like, tell the truth. Tell the truth that you're scared. Tell the truth that you don't know what's going to happen. Tell the truth that you were abused as a child. Tell the truth. Because the truth actually sets you free. And there's no amount of money that you can pay that will give you that satisfaction. So that was the fifth. The truth. So this experience, to put into words, humbling, eye-opening. Like, I'm trying to think right now, like, how to put it into words. Like, I can't. These feelings, like the connection that I have with these men, not based on anything other than our bond in the truth, our bond in the fact that we've suffered, but we've suffered together. And we don't have to suffer anymore. Like, you live your life in truth. You don't have to suffer anymore. You don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to be afraid anymore. What are men missing today? The truth. Like, that's it. The truth. So, as I was thinking, and I know I brought this up in previous podcast episodes, I'm like, there's going to be something cool on this landing page. Like, if you go here, if you go to awakentheguardian.com, there's going to be like something super cool, like mind-blowing. You're going to be like, whoa, this is so awesome. Where's this been my whole life? I'll never be able to live without this. Yeah, I couldn't find anything like that. The truth is that I was trying to find something cool for you guys, but it didn't matter. Like, cool isn't going to help you in your lives. It's not. I've tried it. Like, I tried the cool factor. Like, you know the cool factor of a cop, like badging a gun, hey, what's up, ladies? Or like, wow, you were a cop? That's so cool. Like, everybody says it, right? Cops are cool. But the truth was worth so much more than that. So, what do I have for you? I actually do have something now. So if you go to awakentheguardian.com, you will no longer see a blank page. It's set up, and it's set up very simple. It's set up with something that you can download. It's called the Gap Map. G-A-P space M-A-P. Gap Map. We talked about a gap earlier, right? And what was the purpose of this gap? It was to expose us to the fact that this is where we are and that's where we want to go. Really, truly, that's what it is. So what the Gap Map does is it allows you to take this concept and make it a reality. Like, you can go home and tell your wife or tell your kids or tell your boss or whatever, man, you wouldn't believe what I learned today. Like, there's a gap between where I am and where I want to go, and I've been afraid to look at it. I've been afraid to do anything about it. And people are going to look at you like, okay, weirdo. You know, and turn around and walk away. So what is the purpose of the Gap Map? The Gap Map is super simple, right? It's going to allow you a structured way where you can actually look at where it is that you are right now, what it is that you want, and then what's in the way. So let me give you an example. In my life. So I know that right now I can't swim. And I've talked about this before. Like, I can't swim. So I can continue to talk about not being able to swim. And what's that going to do with my life? Well, really nothing. It's not going to do anything. Or I can look at the fact of where I'm at right now, where I want to be in 12 months, where I want to be in 12 weeks, figure out what the gap is in between, and then actually fill that gap in with things that I can do to get me there. Right? I can't swim, won't get me to swimming. A desire to swim won't get me to swimming. But me saying, I can't swim, in 12 weeks I want to be able to swim 250 meters without stopping, cool. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to get a coach. I need to swim 3 days a week. I need to get swimming shorts. I need to get goggles. I need to find a pool. I need to get fins. Like, whatever these things are that need to happen, like, now I know. Like, the gap is filled in now. It's no longer a, well, yeah, I really want to learn how to swim, so yeah, here we go. It's filled in. And and then in 12 months it's to do a triathlon. So cool, it has to happen in 12 months. All right, well, I have to get a coach. Cool, I need to learn how to swim 2 miles because that's what's required in a triathlon. Like, so it's no longer dealing in this world of fantasy. You're just dealing in this world of facts, of truth. You look at your relationship with God or this higher being. Like, where are you at right now? Where do you want to be in 12 weeks? Where do you want to be in a year? You look at your relationship with your wife and your kids. Where are you at right now? Where do you want to be in 12 months? Where do you want to be in a year? You look at your money situation right now. Your ability to make and keep money. Where are you at right now? Where do you want to be in 12 weeks? Where do you want to be in a year? And then you can start to fill in this gap with actions, right? Things that you can physically do to get you there. So it's no longer a, man, I want to make more money. Okay, well, what does that mean? That's a fantasy. I want to make more money. Okay, in 12 months, I want to double my income. Cool. So that means in 12 weeks, I have to be making $20,000 more. Cool. So what can I do in 12 weeks that'll help me make $20,000 more in my current industry? Or if I take on an additional industry, or if I add this other thing, or if I do, like, now it's like real things that I can do to get me to where I want to go. So the purpose of the gap map, simple. It helps you go from where you're at to where you want to be. Period. All right. So if you go to awakentheguardian.com, put in your name and email address, you'll be able to download the gap map. Gap map, super simple to use. If you have any questions, I would say call me, but I'm not going to give all you crazies my phone number. There'll be an email address that you can text, or I'm sorry, you can send an email to. But it's really super simple and easy to use. Like, it's not complicated. I don't want to make it complicated because I want you to be able to use it. I want you to be able to get what it is that you want out of life. Sound good? All right, that is it for today's episode. Remember. You can learn all about protection and all about the importance of your family and everything. But if you're not doing anything and you have no family, then none of this stuff even matters. So, until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.